Chapter 279. Elvis could tell from Gu Mingming's expression that she wanted to know what had happened in the past. Although those memories were not pretty and it would be bloody if he peeled open his wounds, but if he could talk about those things, other than Gu Mingming, there was no one else he could open his heart to. Elvis sighed and asked, "Where do you want to start?" Gu Mingming placed her little hand on Elvis's chest and placed it on his left chest to feel his heartbeat. She leaned into his embrace gently and said softly, "Start from the part where you are willing to share with me and where you will not feel uncomfortable." Elvis recalled his past seriously. When he was hugging Gu Mingming in his arms, he suddenly felt that the countless sleepless nights and the hatred and bloodlust in his heart were not worth mentioning. After having Gu Mingming, he felt that those torturous days were just a nightmare that passed by in the blink of an eye, so blurry and insignificant. Since she was talking about Leah, then he should put those painful past aside for now. Xiao Meng's mood would only be affected if she knew about those unhappy things. With that thought in mind, Elvis hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and said slowly, "Let's start from the day I met Leah. At that time, I was still a lone ranger and I met Leah, who was covered in wounds in the depths of the forest. He was on the verge of death and could not even maintain his human form, but he refused to lie in the ditch and wait for death like a normal beast. Instead, he raised his head and stared in one direction with determination. I did not know what he was looking at, I only knew that gaze. I had seen it countless times in the reflection by the water." Elvis paused and smiled sarcastically. He continued, "I don't even know what I was thinking at that time. For some unknown reason, I gave half of my food to him. Then, I sat together with him and ate the first meal in my life with someone accompanying me peacefully. That feeling was very strange. It was clearly the first time we met, but it felt like we had known each other for a long time. We did not need to say anything and we could understand each other's thoughts, or, it was not that we did not need to say anything, but those feelings could not be expressed in words." Elvis looked down at Gu Mingming and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Gu Mingming rubbed her tummy and answered, "If I had not mated with you, I think I would really believe that you and Leah are a couple." Gu Mingming had already answered this question a long time ago. Elvis frowned and sighed, "How can two males form a pair?" Gu Mingming pouted and mumbled softly, "Only people of the same sex need to attack and receive. How can people of different genders love each other?" "What did you say?" Elvis gritted his teeth in anger. "How can we love each other when we are of different genders?" Now that they had a baby, what else could it be if it wasn't love? No, you can continue." Gu Mingming waved her hands and apologized for ruining the atmosphere. Although she was not sincere at all, Elvis did not continue as he thought of something else. He cupped Gu Mingming's little chin and said, "I remember you had thought of this before. You even treated Lee's prayer as a forced marriage on me on the day of the coming-of-age ceremony, right?" Gu Mingming burst out laughing when she thought of how Leah dressed up strangely and stood on top of the wooden pagoda. She nodded her head in delight. "Then, who do you think is the one on the attack and the one on the receiving? Aside from the topic." Chapter 280. What the heck, this question was too serious. If she answered honestly, Gu Mingming had no doubt that Elvis would make her lie in bed until her son was born in order to prove his masculinity. What the heck, just thinking about it made Gu Mingming's legs go numb and her hip bones turn soft, while her heart shuddered. Laughing dryly, Gu Mingming rubbed her temples and pretended to be forgetful. "Sigh, people say that pregnancy makes you dumb for 3 years. I just got pregnant and my memory deteriorated rapidly, the things in the past, I can't remember anymore." Elvis did not know what to do with Gu Mingming, but he was not a fool. Raising his brows, Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "Remember, I will ask you again 3 years later. Think about it carefully then answer me." "Yes, Sir Hubby." Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's arm obediently and looked up at him. "Continue, what happened next?" Elvis sorted out his emotions that were messed up by Gu Mingming and continued, after we finished eating, Leah suggested to me to create a tribe. I was very shocked at that time. There were only the two of us. How could we create a tribe? And at that time, I was used to drifting. Settling down was something that I had never thought of. But at that time, I did not have anything worth doing. Creating a tribe was just one of the many crazy things that I had yet to try. At that time, I had the thought of accompanying him for 2 days and leaving when I felt bored, so I agreed to his suggestion. That year, the two of us fought side by side, using battle after battle to tear open a gap in the territories of many tribes, delineating our own territory and forming the embryonic form of Saint Nazir's territory. But at that time, our tribe did not even have a name. In the spring of the second year, Leah and I went to the female beauty pageant. It was the first time we met Maya. She was originally accompanying the first beauty of their tribe to participate in the contest, but on the way back, they met stray beasts. The males in the tribe could not protect both of them at the same time, so they chose to give up on Maya and protect the first beauty with all their might. But it was a pity that stray beasts were not the type to give up easily. They asked one of them to look after Maya, while the other one attacked with all their might, fighting for the other female. In the battle, the female was bitten to death by a stray beast that had gone berserk. Instead, Maya, who had been abandoned from the start, managed to survive because she curled up quietly at the side. I originally didn't want to bother about these troublesome matters, but Leah said that for the tribe to develop, there must be females. And females saved from the stray beasts are the least likely source of conflict. So the two of us saved Maya from the stray beasts and brought her back to the beauty pageant. Even though Maya was still underage then, after Leah dressed her up, she managed to attract many males to follow her and join our tribe. And the name Saint Nazir was the result of Leah's consultation with the beast deity during Maya's coming-of-age ceremony. In beast language, it means reaper. At that time, everyone in the tribe knew about Maya's experience, so they thought that the beast deity's intention was to make our tribe stronger, and use the identity of reaper to save more females like Maya from the stray beasts. But Leah and I both knew that the meaning of reaper to us is revenge. Digression. Thank you, Baining Lu, for tipping 100 points. Thank you babies for your support during the PK period. Su saw all the 5-star reviews that everyone worked hard to help Su. Thank you babies. Chapter 281. Revenge. Gu Mengmeng did not understand what he meant and asked, "To whom?" We have never asked each other this question, but we both know very well that in our hearts, there is someone we need to take revenge on. Elvis paused for a moment before continuing. Now it seems like Sauter is the one Leah wants to take revenge on. What about you? Gu Mengmeng pressed on. Elvis lowered his head and met Gu Mengmeng's eyes. His blue eyes reflected the light from the fire, just like the starry night sky, so dazzling that one could not look away. Gently rubbing Gu Mengmeng's little head, Elvis said with a gentle face, "Now, I can no longer remember what I hate, because those, compared to you, are too insignificant." Gu Mengmeng's heart warmed and she smiled. "I am very honored to be able to walk out of your unhappy past with me. In the future, we will be very happy." Elvis nodded, his smile full of tenderness. He lifted Gu Mengmeng's little chin and kissed it, saying, "So, don't ever leave me. I don't want to go back anymore." "Yeah." Gu Mengmeng nodded and kissed Elvis back. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and placed her on his lap, then used his chin to gently rest on the top of her head. Looking at the burning fire, he slowly opened his mouth and continued, "I don't know what the people of Sauter did to Leah, but I know that Lee's hatred towards them is inextinguishable. From the start, his decision to build Saint Nazir was not a spur-of-the-moment decision." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and continued Elvis's words, "What you mean is, from the start, Leah wanted to build a strong tribe to fight against Sauter, for revenge?" Elvis nodded slowly and said, "Meeting me was an opportunity. His plan only started to form after meeting me. I don't know why he would place me in such a central position and not become the tribe leader himself. With his abilities, even without me, he should be able to achieve his goal. I've asked him this question before, and his answer was, I'm more like a living person than he is. Gu Mengmeng did not quite understand the meaning of this sentence. She wanted to raise her head to take a look, but Elvis pressed against her little head to stop her. He played with her little hand and continued, this sentence is very strange, right? Over the years, I would occasionally think of these words, but I never understood them. It wasn't until I met you that I saw with my own eyes what Leah meant by living. Can you imagine? In the days before I met you, Lee's expression had always been smiling and had never changed. Regardless of whether he was facing an unreasonable female or a powerful, despicable, or vulnerable opponent, his expression was always the same. No one could tell his emotions from his expression, not even me. But after meeting you, his eyes began to shine, and his smile began to represent his emotions. I even saw jealousy in his eyes. Just because you ignored him when you were fooling around with Sandy. He gradually recovered from being a shell, and started to look like a living person bit by bit. Only then did I know that he said those words back then. Perhaps it was because I would at least express the emotions of disgust or impatience towards certain things, while he did not even have these two emotions. Aside from the topic. Chapter 282. Gu Mengmeng found it hard to imagine. What kind of life was it for a person to not have any feelings of disgust? Or, could he still be considered alive? Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng's little head and kissed it, continuing, a person who has not had any emotions for many years, any emotion he feels now will be magnified many times more than an ordinary person. The amount of happiness he once felt because of you is the same amount of pain he feels now. I'm afraid he can't withstand such a huge difference. Gu Mengmeng's heart tightened too. She felt a sense of guilt, as if she did not kill him but he died because of her. Biting her lower lip, Gu Mengmeng felt a little discouraged and said, but I can't mate with him just because I pity him. If I don't love him but accept him, wouldn't his future life be even more miserable? Maybe, after a period of time, he won't get any reciprocation from me and will slowly give up. Or maybe one day, he will meet someone better and realize that I'm not worth his persistence. Elvis smiled and held Gu Mengmeng's little face, saying seriously, in this world, there's no one better than you. Gu Mengmeng felt good being praised by her own husband, but she was too embarrassed to admit it, so she said, that's just what you think, others might not think the same, right? Elvis sighed. He hoped more than anyone else that the two possibilities Gu Mengmeng mentioned could come true, but he knew better than anyone how impossible these two possibilities were. Persuading his own female to accept someone else, Elvis could be considered a precedent in the beast world. Because other females did not need persuasion at all, it was something that could not be stopped. They could just casually go out for a walk and come back home with a few new members. But the one in their family was so caring, so gentle, so unbearable. I won't force you to accept Leah, but at least give him some time to get used to it. Don't be too cruel to him before he gives up. Elvis's hand tangled with Gu Mengmeng's fingers lightly, feeling extremely conflicted. Who would be willing to let his wife find a few more men? But, if I hadn't challenged him to a duel that time, he would be the one with this happiness now. Every time I see Leah being sad for you, I feel like a despicable thief who stole the happiness that should have been his. Gu Mengmeng suddenly laughed. She looked up at Elvis and asked, do you really think that you won me from a fight? Elvis nodded his head seriously. Gu Mengmeng really did not know whether to laugh or cry and was too lazy to explain. She just hugged Elvis's face and kissed his chin, saying, all right, then you better improve your skills well. If we lose one day, our family might have a few more family members. Elvis remained silent for a moment before asking, will you accept Leah if he defeats me? Gu Mengmeng did not answer but asked back, if I say yes, will you go easy on me? Go, easy. Where to put it? Elvis asked seriously. Gu Meng Meng was speechless. She rearranged her words and said, "What I mean is, if I say, yes, will you purposely lose to him?" Chapter 283. Gu Meng Meng nodded her head in satisfaction before wrapping her arms around Elvis's neck. "You will listen to me, right?" Elvis nodded without hesitation. Gu Meng Meng pressed her forehead against Elvis's and said, "I want you to be invincible." Elvis was stunned and his lips curled up. He kissed Gu Meng Meng's lips and said softly, "All right, from today onwards, there will only be death in battle and no defeat." Gu Meng Meng shook her head and said, "Only victory, no defeat and no death. I don't want to be a widow and I don't want my son to be an orphan." Elvis followed Gu Meng Meng's hand and looked at her flat stomach. There was a strange feeling nourishing his entire body. Placing Gu Meng Meng on the bed, he knelt on the floor and pressed his face against Gu Meng Meng's stomach. He held his breath and concentrated on listening to something. Gu Meng Meng smiled and said, "It's only been a few days, what can I hear? I can only hear it after 3 to 5 months." Elvis tilted his head and looked at Gu Meng Meng, saying, "They should give birth in about 60 days. After 3 to 5 months, you don't have to listen anymore and they should be able to run around." Gu Meng Meng was stunned and asked with her eyes widened, "What? 60 days?" Elvis nodded and said, "The gestation time for wolf cubs is about 60 to 63 days. F*******. Gu Meng Meng deeply felt that ever since she came to the beast world, her life seemed to have pressed the fast-forward button. First love, heartbreak, marriage, pregnancy, everything happened in such a short time that she did not even have the time to carefully savor each feeling before rushing to the next stage. "What's wrong?" Elvis asked. Gu Meng Meng's face was bitter as she said, "People say that a woman is like a princess when she's in love, like an empress when she's married, like an empress when she's pregnant, and after giving birth, she has to be an old mother for a generation. I only became a princess for a few days and you're already in a hurry to mate. You're an empress for less than a month and you're already an empress. I thought it would at least be a full month, but you want me to return to the court and start a long journey as an old mother in just 2 months, sobs. Elvis, I've really suffered a loss in marrying you. I want a refund. Elvis completely did not understand the difference between princess, empress, and old maid. Or rather, he did not understand the meaning of these titles at all. Gu Meng Meng's emotions had been fluctuating greatly ever since she got pregnant. He was especially afraid that she would be angry, because she said that if a pregnant woman was angry, it would result in a miscarriage, which was very dangerous. So Elvis asked carefully, "Do you want to be a princess, an empress, or an empress?" Gu Meng Meng twitched her lips and said, "I don't want any of them, I want to be a queen." "All right, then you can be the queen. After the ice melts, we will hold the heaven offering ceremony and let Leah report to the beast deity that you are the queen of Saint Nazir, all right?" Elvis said seriously. Looking at Elvis's serious face, Gu Meng Meng suddenly laughed. She raised her head and said, "You don't have to go through so much trouble, I just want to be your queen." Elvis also smiled. He knelt on the ground and wrapped his upper body around Gu Meng Meng's waist. "My exclusive queen. Isn't that too blissful?" Chapter 284. Elvis laughed, "Silly girl, the females in the beast world are only responsible for breastfeeding, the rest is done by the males." Gu Meng Meng was overjoyed and raised her eyebrows high, asking, "So, you are the one taking care of the children? You don't need me to?" Elvis nodded, "Yes, queen. But you have to take care of the children and me during my confinement, won't it be too tiring?" Although Gu Meng Meng had never given birth before, she had the experience of taking care of little kids in the past, so she knew how scary naughty children were. Confinement. Elvis caught the main point. "Yeah." Gu Meng Meng nodded. "After a woman gives birth, all the bones in her body will be more or less displaced, so she needs to rest for a month to let her bones return to their original positions. She can't be exposed to the wind, nor can she be tired, or else there will be repercussions and she will have to suffer for the rest of her life. Gu Mengmeng still did not know how big of a hole she had dug for herself with her words. Elvis remembered this sentence firmly in his heart, then said, "It's all right, let Leah take care of the cubs, I will take care of you." Gu Mengmeng raised her eyebrows, asking, "It's not appropriate to throw your own children to others." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead, saying, "Xiao Meng, don't be too cruel to Leah, at least allow him to do something for you. Or else, he really won't be able to survive." But Gu Mengmeng frowned, feeling very burdened. But Elvis smiled, his smile was exceptionally evil. Males who have not mated cannot break through the bottleneck of the 3rd level. I am a 4th level beast now, while Leah is 3rd level, he can't beat me. Gu Mengmeng reacted for a while, then looked at Elvis with a, "I didn't expect you to be such a scheming B***TCH face," saying, "So you said, those who can't beat you can't become our family member, but as long as they have not mated, they can't beat you, so you want to order Leah around like a free Filipino maid? Is this alright? Is this really alright? Aren't the two of you, good brothers who have depended on each other for many years? What happened to the friendship of life and death? How can this friendship of yours capsize so easily?" But Elvis remained indifferent, saying, "He can leave if he's unwilling, I won't stop him." Gu Mengmeng shook her head helplessly and said, "I didn't expect you to be like this, Elvis, you're so black-hearted." Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng's little hand over and kissed it, before saying, "So, you don't have to feel burdened. Just accept his kindness. When he defeats me, you can consider whether or not you want to accept him." Gu Mengmeng still wanted to say something, but Elvis stood up and walked to the side of the stone pot, saying, "Leah cooked 3 days' worth of food before we left, and asked me to pour a bowl of it into the pot to heat it up for you to eat. I'll take this bowl today." With that, Elvis poured a bowl of unknown substance into the stone pot. There was originally a finger-deep pool of boiling water in the stone pot, and when the frozen food fell into the pot, the boiling water splashed everywhere. But Elvis's face was cold, and he did not dodge. He just stared at the pot as if he was facing a formidable enemy, constantly comparing the situation in the pot with the food that Leah told him to take out of the pot. Looking at Elvis, who was obviously not good at cooking, but kept learning and trying hard for her sake, Gu Mengmeng could not bear to discuss more about other men with him, especially when this man was her ex-boyfriend. Chapter 285. On the 3rd night, Elvis's cave entrance was once again destroyed from the outside. Gu Mengmeng came out wearing a beast skin and saw Leah sweeping the snow off his body with his fluffy tail under the bright moonlight. The moment he saw Gu Mengmeng, the snow fox transformed into a human, leaving behind a large furry tail and a pair of cute fox ears. "Mengmeng, I'm back." Lee's smile was even brighter than the moonlight. He stomped his feet at the entrance to shake off all the snow on his body, but raised his hand to stop Gu Mengmeng from coming closer. "Go back inside and wait for a while, I'll come in after warming myself up." "It's alright, I'm not cold." As Gu Mengmeng said that, she walked to Lee's side and held his hand, leading him into the depths of the cave. As they walked, she said, "Elvis said just now that the food you prepared has been finished. If you still don't come back, he will personally cook for you." Io, thinking about his cooking skills. Leah did not say a word and just followed behind Gu Mengmeng quietly, letting her hold his hand. This feeling was like a dream. He had been searching for small things for her to eat these 3 days. Every time he was about to freeze, he would tell himself that Mengmeng was still waiting for him, so he had to come back alive. But when he really saw Gu Mengmeng waiting for him, he could not believe it. Was Mengmeng not angry at him anymore? He did not dare to ask this question. He did not even dare to make a sound, afraid that this was just a hallucination before he died frozen in the snow. Once this illusion bubble burst, all that was left in front of him was the howling wind and the cold snow, composing the music of death. To be able to see such a scene before his death, he decided to forgive all the cruelty in the past on account of the beast deity's kindness. Entering the depths of the cave, Elvis was stirring the food in the stone pot with a serious expression. He looked up at Leah and said, "If you don't come back soon, I'll think you died outside." Leah smiled faintly and did not say anything. Gu Meng Meng pulled Leah to the side of the fire and made him sit down. Then, she took a beast skin and draped it over him. "You must be tired after being wild for 3 days, right? Have a good rest after eating. If there's anything else, let's talk tomorrow." Elvis clapped his hands, indicating that the food was ready. He then took out the biggest bowl and scooped a bowl for Gu Meng Meng, before taking out 2 smaller bowls for himself and Leah. He passed the bowl to Leah, but Leah did not reach out to take it. Elvis frowned and said, "You still want me to feed you?" Leah suddenly smiled and carefully took over the small bowl. Then, he took a small sip. This illusion is really realistic. Even the temperature and smell are so real. Wah! Gu Meng Meng had just taken a bite when she suddenly vomited. She squatted by the bed and vomited until she could not straighten her back. Elvis hurriedly placed the bowl down, then patted Gu Meng Meng's back while turning around to look at Leah, who was smiling like an idiot. "Did you freeze yourself, silly? Aren't you going to get some water?" I can still do a small thing for Meng Meng before I die. I am so happy." Leah nodded and smiled as he took Gu Meng Meng's cup. He poured a cup of warm water from the stone pot at the side and passed it to Elvis. As Elvis was in a hurry to receive it, his nails accidentally cut Lee's fingers. Blood, bleeding, and a little pain. So, this is not an illusion. Aside from the topic, babies, don't say that I mistreated Leah. After a while, when Wenwen is put up for adoption, Leah will be a child with a biological mother. Then, will I still dare to mistreat him in the future? Chapter 286. Why are you in a daze? Water. Elvis was very surprised by Lee's state this time. Leah had always been meticulous and sharp, such a slow reaction was unlike him. Leah was called back to his senses by Elvis and wanted to pass the cup to Elvis, but he suddenly changed direction halfway and walked straight to Gu Meng Meng's side. He carried Gu Meng Meng, who had just vomited, and bent one knee to the ground while the other was bent at a 90-degree angle. He used his leg as a chair for Gu Meng Meng to sit down, then used his big tail to support her back, turning himself into a human fox chair. With both hands free, he wiped away the filth at the side of Gu Meng Meng's lips with one hand and passed the cup to her lips with the other, saying gently, "Come, drink some water." Gu Meng Meng was dizzy from vomiting and could not care less about who was taking care of her. She drank a mouthful of water from the side of the cup, rinsed her mouth and spat it out. Then, she drank another mouthful before forcefully swallowing it down, suppressing the nauseous feeling. Leah stuck out his tongue and licked away the water stain at the side of Gu Meng Meng's lips. This action shocked Gu Meng Meng, who had just regained her senses, and she instinctively took a step back. She looked at Leah warily and asked, "What are you doing?" Leah stretched out both his hands, one holding a cup of water and the other holding a bunch of grapes that had the texture of ice crystals. He tilted his head and said, "I don't have hands anymore." Gu Meng Meng lifted her sleeves to wipe her mouth, then laughed dryly and said, "It's all right, I can do it myself." Leah looked at Gu Meng Meng with a wronged look and said, "You were the one who held my hand first." Gu Meng Meng could not refute him. The education in the modern world was different from the Qing dynasty. It was normal for a friend who had not returned for 3 days to pull down his arm to warm himself by the fire and drink a cup of hot water, but to Leah, it was a special hint. Gu Meng Meng sighed and stood up from Lee's legs. She said, "Sorry, I was careless. I will take note in the future." Leah followed Gu Meng Meng up and hugged her from behind. Like a dog abandoned by its owner, he said pitifully, compared to an apology, I want to hear your confession more. Leah. Gu Mengmeng did not struggle with all her might. She could not deny that the stories Elvis had told her had loosened her grip on Leah. The human heart was made of flesh. I won't cross the line again. I won't be greedy for more. Leah was not like Elvis, who could not wait to rub Gu Mengmeng into his body every time he hugged her. Instead, he was loose and soft. It gave Gu Mengmeng space to breathe, but did not allow her to break free at will. It was a gentle trap, not terrifying, but equally fatal. I will abide by your boundaries, so, treat me a little better, just a little, okay? Gu Mengmeng could not reject him, because Elvis said that she was the only one who could free Leah from the clutches of hatred all these years. If she took drastic measures without holding back, she might very well be the last straw that broke Lee's back. After all, they had fallen in love once. If she really wanted to push Leah to his death, Gu Mengmeng knew that she could not bring herself to do it. But if she were to give herself to someone just because of pity, Gu Mengmeng knew that she did not have that much love for this level of sacrifice. Digression, Leah, feeling wronged, he bit his handkerchief. Chapter 287. Leah, let's reconcile. Gu Mengmeng gently pushed Lee's arms away. Her actions were not violent and it made Leah unable to continue restraining her. Gu Mengmeng took a step forward and turned to look at Leah. She continued, I liked you from the bottom of my heart back then. I don't know where we would be if so many things did not happen. Maybe I would mate with you and bear your children. Maybe even if you did not do those things that made me sad, would still break up with you. Because, liking is just liking, it's not love. Leah could not maintain his smile and his trembling lips made one's heart ache. He plucked a grape that looked like an ice crystal and stuffed it into Gu Mengmeng's mouth without any explanation. He then said to himself, this is called Schwelling fruit. It's only available during winter. There are not many people who have eaten it in the beast world. Even our snow fox tribe would not take the risk to look for it during winter. But its taste is very special and all the females who have eaten it say they like it. Eat more while it's fresh. Don't waste my effort. With that, he stuffed all the Schwelling fruits into Gu Mengmeng's arms and turned to leave. That silhouette was fleeing in panic. He could remain calm even when facing enemies stronger than him. But he was always defeated in front of Gu Mengmeng. He did not know what he was afraid of. At least Gu Mengmeng did not destroy that relationship. She said she wanted to reconcile with him. She even admitted that she liked him. Shouldn't this be something to be happy about? But why did his heart hurt so much? It was even more painful than the day she made it. Ah, he must have suffered frostbite while searching for the Schwelling fruit. If not, why would there be a layer of thousand-year-old ice on his heart? It was hard yet fragile. Just one word from Gu Mengmeng would shatter it into tiny ice shards. Gu Mengmeng looked at the Schwelling fruit in her arms. She did not chase after Leah. She knew that with Lee's intelligence, he would definitely be able to guess what she wanted to say. Giving him some time to slowly accept it might be the best outcome for everyone. Could people who had fallen in love still be friends? This was a topic that questioned human nature. As Gu Mengmeng herself, she did not believe it. But Leah, other than a friend, what other identity could she give him? Gu Mengmeng sighed and sat back on the bed. She used a small bowl to divide the Schwelling fruit into 3 portions and held one bowl for herself to eat. The taste was a little sour and a little sweet. It tasted a little like a mangosteen without its skin, and a little like an unripe kiwi. That smell was magical, but it successfully suppressed the waves of nausea that Gu Mengmeng could not suppress just now. Unknowingly, his share of Schwelling fruits had been emptied. Gu Mengmeng licked her lips and secretly stretched her hand towards Elvis's little bowl. Just one will do, just one. Gu Mingming's hand hesitated for a long time above the bowl before she picked the biggest one and stuffed it into her mouth. That mouthful of crispy sweetness made her feel extremely satisfied. Ah, the food in other people's bowls is indeed more delicious. Gu Mengmeng sucked on her fingers and stared at the bowl of tempting Xueling fruits. She looked around and then said softly, "Just one more, just one more." Gu Mengmeng looked at the bowl of tempting Xueling fruits. Chapter 288. "Hubby," Gu Mengmeng shouted at the top of her lungs. Elvis answered and came over with a bowl of steaming fish and potatoes in his hands. Leah followed behind him with a bowl of roasted sweet potatoes that were just taken from the fire pit. The moment the two of them entered, they saw Gu Mengmeng kneeling by the bed, her eyes staring fixedly at the two bowls at the side of the bed. That look of her swallowing her saliva was clearly written on her face that said, "I want to eat," but she was trying her best to hold it back. It was very lovable. Gu Mingming's eyes were glued to the bowls at the side of the bed. Elvis sat beside Gu Mengmeng and glanced at the two bowls. Each bowl was filled with Xueling fruits, but one bowl had more while the other bowl had less. What's wrong? Elvis did not understand why Gu Mengmeng was staring at the two bowls in a daze. "Eat if you want, these are all yours." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and pointed at the bowl with more fruits. "This is Li's." Then, she pointed at the bowl with less fruits. "This is yours." Gu Mengmeng carried the smaller bowl and lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. Her voice was filled with grievance as she pouted and explained, "You and Leah originally had the same amount, but I couldn't help it." Gu Mengmeng smacked her lips. There was no longer any sweetness in her mouth and only a sour taste was left. But it was this taste that made her unable to stop herself. She steeled her heart and passed the bowl to Elvis. She turned her face to the other side and said with an expression as if she could not bear to look, "Here, hurry and eat. If you don't eat, I will finish it all." Elvis's heart was so warm that it was a mess. He held the food with one hand and hugged Gu Mingming's waist with the other to pull her into his arms. He smiled helplessly and said, "Do you think I will snatch your food?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and pursed her lips without saying a word. Elvis said again, "Then what are you hesitating for? Hurry and eat." Gu Mengmeng still shook her head and passed the bowl with Xueling fruits to Elvis again. "We are husband and wife. We should share blessings and misfortunes together. It doesn't make sense for me to be the only one eating delicious food and you to face danger alone." Elvis knew that Gu Mengmeng was still upset over the fact that he had hidden her away to fight the stray beasts alone. These few days, she had been blaming herself for being so useless. How could she be so useless when faced with danger and be unable to do anything other than watch from the sidelines? Elvis didn't know what it meant to be a weakling, but he knew that it couldn't be anything good. So, in order to appease her, he promised to bring her along to do survival training with the baby after she gave birth. Only then did she feel slightly better about it, but she still couldn't let it go completely. Every time he saw Gu Mengmeng distressed over this matter, Elvis felt that he had been too kind to let those stray beasts leave. If he could turn back time, he would definitely make them regret coming to Saint Nazaire. No, he would make them regret being born into this world. But now, Elvis's priority was to comfort Gu Mengmeng. Exchanging a look with Leah, Leah walked forward and sat sideways in front of Gu Mengmeng. He pointed at the bowl with more food and asked, "This is mine?" Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "Yes, you worked so hard outside for 3 days to find it, you have to have a taste no matter what. Don't worry, I didn't eat any of yours, not even a single one." But Leah flipped over and laid sideways on the edge of the bed. He used his elbow to support his chin and said, "But I had already eaten a lot when I was plucking them. Now that I think about it, I can still feel the acid in my mouth. I don't want to eat anymore." Aside from the topic, today was the first time I deleted a reader's comment. To be honest, I felt a little down. Actually, you have the right to not like my novel and you also have the right to not read it. But you really don't have to say such harsh words. Authors are also human and can be hurt. If you feel that my novel can't attract you, can't you turn around gracefully and give each other some face and part on good terms? What else can you gain by saying such harsh words in the comments section other than making yourself look like a person with no morals? I don't know if you will see this comment, but I still want to say it. Whatever my babies say, I'll take it seriously. Chapter 289. Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. The smile that came from the bottom of her heart was a joy that even an amazing actor could not act out. Her little hand secretly reached towards Li's bowl and stopped before touching it. She looked at Leah and asked, "You really don't want to eat?" Leah nodded his head nonchalantly. Then, he gently pushed the small bowl into Gu Mingming's hands and said, "Here, it's all for you. Eat it." Gu Mingming smiled brightly. She held the small bowl in her arms so tightly that only her teeth could be seen. She said sincerely, "Leah, thank you." Leah smiled and nodded without saying a word. After waiting for 2 days and 2 nights for the Xueling fruits to ripen, the cold wind that was as sharp as a knife felt as painful as being cut by a knife. After enduring for 2 days and nights, he only managed to pluck such a small bunch. But it was enough to see Gu Mingming eating so happily and smiling so blissfully. Elvis frowned and asked, "This is sour." Gu Mingming placed a Xueling fruit into her mouth. Then, she nodded at Elvis with a blissful face as a reply. Elvis, on the other hand, poured the Xueling fruit in his bowl into Gu Mingming's bowl with a look of disdain. He said, "I am a wolf. I only eat meat and not grass. Especially not this kind of grass that is so sour that even my teeth become soft. It's all for you. Eat it." Happiness came too suddenly. Gu Mingming felt a blow from happiness. By her life was complete. Gu Mingming ate the Xueling fruit that was split into 3 in satisfaction. She was so happy that she rolled around on the bed. Elvis and Leah looked at each other and smiled. What in this world was more precious than Gu Mingming's smiling face? "My queen, don't you feel sour after eating so many sour fruits?" Elvis placed the fish and potato stew in front of Gu Mingming, hoping that she would take a bite. But Gu Mingming suddenly covered her nose and said, "Quick! Take it away. I'm going to vomit." Gu Mingming's heart ached for the Xueling fruit. She endured the burning sensation in her throat and refused to spit it out. Elvis hurriedly took the fish away. When he came back, there was only clean water in the bowl. He was prepared to let Gu Mingming rinse her mouth. Gu Mingming calmed herself down. She laid on the bed lazily and said, "Every day, potato stew and fish stew. I want to vomit just by hearing potatoes and fish." Compared to the past years, their food this year was actually more sumptuous. But to Gu Mingming of the food. But Leah replied with a smile, "Being able to do something for Mingming is the first time I'm thankful for my snow fox bloodline." With that, Leah turned to look at Gu Mingming and asked gently, like a kindergarten teacher coaxing a child who was unwilling to eat, "Mingming, tell me, what do you want to eat? I'll help you find it." Gu Mingming thought to herself, "I want to eat dompa pork, hot and sour noodles, sesame paste noodles and mutton buns." "Let me tell you, where are you going to find them?" Sighing, Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Forget it. In this world of ice and snow, there is definitely nothing I want to eat. Even if there is, it would be frozen and I can't eat it." Chapter 290. Upon hearing that, Gu Mingming was instantly energized. She knew that there were many seasonings now used for cooking that were used as herbs in the past. She could name them like pepper, star anise, fennel, cinnamon, tangerine peel, 1,000 miles fragrant. Slapping her forehead, Gu Mingming said, "Sigh, why didn't I think of that? Quick, 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 bring it to me. Leo looked at Gu Mingming's energetic look and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he opened up the beast skin that contained the herbs and placed it in front of Gu Mengmeng. When he came out of his cave, he was in a hurry. At that time, he didn't have the mood to organize these things, so when he opened the package, many medicinal herbs were mixed together. Even Leah had to spend some time to differentiate the species, let alone Gu Mengmeng being able to tell anything at a glance. Leo laid beside Gu Mengmeng and slowly picked up the herbs one by one to identify them before placing them separately. Gu Mengmeng was not interested in those that she could not name. She just quickly searched through the pile of herbs for something that she could recognize. Sometimes, happiness came so unexpectedly. Ah! Gu Mengmeng took out a fiery red rhizome from the pile of herbs and held it with both hands, looking at it as if it was a rare treasure. She was so shocked that she could not even speak. But Leah snatched the fiery red herb from Gu Mingming's hands and said with a serious face, "I can't do this, it's too dangerous." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Leah. "What's so dangerous about chili? Do the chilies here fart or something?" Leah placed the chili behind him, as if he was afraid that Gu Mengmeng would suddenly pounce over and snatch it away. He said, "This flame crystal fruit is used to attack the enemy. It's a magical weapon that can take them by surprise and win with one move. It's really dangerous. Don't play with this, okay? Attack type." Gu Mengmeng smiled evilly. "Don't tell me you want to grind this into powder and scatter it on the enemy's face." Leo was stunned. How did you know?" Gu Mengmeng slapped her thighs and laughed maniacally. "Ha ha ha, not only do I know, I also know that this move is called eye stinging." "Wicked, Leah, you're too wicked." Leah and Elvis could not continue the conversation as they looked at each other and waited for her to finish laughing. Gu Mengmeng was finally tired of laughing. She opened her palms and said, "I'm better at this than you. Hand it over quickly, don't make me snatch it away." Leah hesitated because he had once accidentally gotten some in his eyes. That feeling was really unbearable. At that time, he thought that his eyes were going to be crippled. He really did not want Gu Mengmeng to touch such a dangerous thing. Gu Mengmeng was getting impatient. She clicked her tongue and used her elbow to poke Elvis. "Hubby." Elvis looked at Leah helplessly and said, "Give it to her." "But..." Leah frowned and met Elvis's eyes with his hand still behind his back. Elvis did not let Leah finish his sentence and directly said, "Xiao Meng is the head of the household, you, all have to listen to her." Leah was stunned. He looked into Elvis's eyes and could not say a word. So... Elvis meant that he acknowledged him, as a member of Mingming's family. Elvis ignored the change in Lee's expression and repeated, "Give it to her." Chapter 291. Gu Mengmeng took over the chili and brought it to her mouth right in front of Elvis and Leah. She took a bite and started chewing with a crunching sound. Elvis and Lee's faces were filled with shock, giving Gu Mengmeng a strange sense of accomplishment. The two males were so shocked that they could not say a word. They could only watch as Gu Mengmeng swallowed the chili directly into her stomach. She took a sip of water from the bedside and sighed in satisfaction. "Feels good." Elvis took over Gu Mingming's cup and filled it up for her. Then, he asked worriedly, "Are you all right? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Let Leah take a look at you." Gu Mengmeng smacked her lips and said, "If I'm uncomfortable, it's not satisfying enough. Leah, do you have any more chili? Give me a few more." Leah saw that Gu Mingming's expression did not look like she was pretending. Then, he thought that if Gu Mengmeng did not use the yellow root to cook, he would never have thought that the herb used to expel the cold could also be a condiment. No longer doubting Gu Mingming's thoughts, Leah rummaged through the pile of herbs and found 7 to 8 chili to pass to Gu Mengmeng, saying, "I did not prepare a lot of these offensive herbs, because if I use too much, others will be on guard. So, I will only use them to win when Elvis and I can't defend against them even if we work together. I only have this much, is it enough? Gu Meng Meng frowned and sighed deeply, saying, "It's a little, but it's enough to eat a meal of fish in hot chili oil." Leah remained silent for a moment, saying, "There are a lot of these during the rainy season. No one wants them if they rot on the ground. If you like them, I can pick them up for you next year." Gu Meng Meng nodded and then shook her head, saying, "I'm not going out to pick them up, it's too troublesome." Leah tilted his head and looked at Gu Meng Meng. Just when he wanted to say that he was not afraid of trouble, Gu Meng Meng cut open the chili and took out the seeds inside, saying, "Bring a small bowl over and put this in. I will plant some during the rainy season next year, it's more convenient to eat." Plant. Leah was confused. "Yeah, don't tell me that no one farms here." Leah and Elvis shook their heads honestly. Gu Mingming's lips twitched, asking, "So, you only eat meat? You won't eat anything else?" Leah replied, "Females would occasionally want to eat some fruits while males mostly eat meat. There are also a small number of herbivorous orcs, but they are independent tribes and usually don't mix with us." Gu Meng Meng rolled her eyes as she thought to herself. Her knowledge of farming was limited to the theories in books, and she had only tried it once. For the convenience of making facial masks, she planted a huge pot of aloe vera. But the problem was that aloe vera was a small seedling dug from someone else's house, and could grow just by sticking it into the soil. Chili pepper, it should be about the same, right? Gu Meng Meng had wanted to count on the experienced people here to teach her, but it seemed like there was no hope now. She could only explore by herself, so she looked at Leah and said, "To be on the safe side, bring me to the place where you found these chilies during the rainy season next year. I will bring 2 mature ones back. Then use the seeds and plant some yourself. Let's see which one bears fruit." But Leah was at a loss. "There are many of these things in the mountains and they grow every year. I can go and pluck them for you when you want them. Why go through so much trouble?" Chapter 292. Leah had originally thought that since Gu Meng Meng liked this chili, he would help her find more next year so that he could do more things for her. But since Gu Meng Meng wanted to transplant it, then so be it. As long as she was happy, anything was fine. So even though Elvis and Leah felt that there was no need to transplant it, but since Gu Meng Meng liked it, they naturally had no reason to object. This matter was settled temporarily. Gu Meng Meng asked Leah to go to the tree outside the cave to look for the fish that she had yet to marinate, while she brought Elvis to start a fire to boil water. "Elvis, ginger slices." Gu Meng Meng stood by the pot and instructed. Elvis used his fingernails to cut 2 slices of ginger in a practiced manner and passed it to Gu Meng Meng. Then, he sat at the side and watched. Yes, this was the only thing Gu Meng Meng allowed him to do when he was cooking. Leah carried 2 fish that Gu Meng Meng had yet to marinate into the cold and walked in. He looked at Gu Meng Meng and asked, "They are already so hard, can they still be eaten?" Gu Meng Meng took over the fish and playfully knocked the 2 fishes against each other, causing some ice shards to fall from the fish. Gu Meng Meng giggled and turned to look at Elvis, asking, "Hubby, can your claws cut the frozen fish?" Elvis took the fish from Gu Meng Meng and looked at her unhappily. Then, he grabbed her little hand and placed it on his waist, saying, "This thing is too cold, don't take it yourself next time." Gu Meng Meng smiled sweetly and agreed. Elvis turned his right hand into a sharp claw and slashed at the frozen fish. That frozen fish was like tofu being cut by a small knife, cleanly sliced into pieces. Most importantly, every piece of fish was as thick as the ginger Elvis had cut. Gu Meng Meng was dumbfounded as she shook her head and clapped. Seeing Elvis turn to look at her, she could not help but give him 2 thumbs up and praised, "Hubby, you're too awesome. I won't dare to pull your ears anymore." If you can't control yourself and scratch me, tsk tisk tsk. Elvis retracted his sharp claws and his hands returned to their slender and fair state. He poked Gu Mingming's head and said, "My claws and fangs will never be used on you. Don't worry too much." Gu Mengmeng smiled fawningly. "That's right, hubby loves me the most mua." Elvis accepted Gu Mingming's exaggerated praise with a smile. No matter how many times he heard it, it was always useful. Gu Mengmeng broke the washed chili into pieces and threw them into the pot to cook. She smacked her lips and said, "Without the Pixian bean paste, the fish in hot chili oil would definitely not be cooked well. Let's eat hot pot today," Gu Mengmeng said as she rummaged through Li's bag of herbs. She found some star anise and cinnamon, but there was nothing else that could be used to make hot pot. So after informing Leah, he took some of these two ingredients and threw them into the pot. She then called Elvis to enter the depths of the cave where the cured meat was stored. She found 2 pieces of meat with bones and asked Elvis to shave the meat off. Then, she broke the bones into small pieces and placed them into the pot to cook the soup base. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath when the rich bone broth was filled with an alluring aroma, before placing the fish into the pot. She used the long chopsticks that Elvis had specially made for her to rinse the meat, then picked up a piece of fish and sent it into her mouth. The fish was caught when it was at its freshest and fattest. The weather was so cold that it felt like it had been placed into a frozen freezer. It did not affect the freshness of the fish at all, and instead, it added a firm and chewy texture to it. When the piece of fish entered her stomach, the spicy sensation instantly whetted Gu Mingming's appetite. Her index finger moved, as if all the blood in her body was boiling. Aside from the topic, today's update had ended and it was the last explosive update during the PK period. If I pass, I will continue with 6 updates tomorrow. If I don't win, then, Chapter 293. Unfortunately, Gu Mengmeng had eaten too much without knowing the limits of the food. In the end, her stomach could not take the stimulation and she vomited out everything she had eaten. Not only the fish hot pot, but also the Schwelling fruit that Leah had brought back after searching for 3 days outside. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her deflated stomach and suddenly felt extremely wronged. Such delicious food was wasted just like that. The more she thought about it, the sadder she felt. In the end, she cried so hard that Elvis and Leah were so anxious that they could not do anything about it. Gu Mingming's emotions fluctuated more and more. As her stomach swelled up like a balloon day by day, the uneasiness had a cumulative effect on Gu Mengmeng. 2 months later, Gu Mengmeng had reached a stage where she could not get down on her own. She could not bend her back or even lower her head. Although she rarely vomited, the more serious problem was that she could not solve her bowel movement problem by herself. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng every day as if he was hugging a child to relieve her bowel movement. It was already shameful when he was peeing, let alone when he was defecating. Every time she went to the toilet, it was an act that refreshed Gu Mingming's shamelessness. Most importantly, Elvis would come back with a serious face to discuss the smell and shape of her bowel movement with Leah, then analyze her health condition. Gu Mengmeng had a feeling that every time Elvis hugged her to relieve her bowel movement, he would sniff hard behind her to confirm the smell and his eyes would stare at the entire process of her bowel movement without blinking at all. Damn, was it Yao Yao Ling? Damn, I seem to have married a pervert. That night, Gu Mengmeng did not sleep well. The little fellows were too active in her stomach, as if they were fighting for something. Ugh! Gu Mengmeng frowned, supporting herself with one hand and holding her stomach with the other, trying to sit up. What's wrong? Elvis almost did not sleep for the past few days. He stayed by Gu Mingming's side every day, carefully observing her every move. The babies are too noisy, I can't sleep. Get up and sit for a while. Gu Mengmeng stretched out an arm for Elvis to support, then leaned into Elvis's embrace. Elvis used his tail as a cushion to make Gu Mengmeng more comfortable. He placed his hand lightly on Gu Mingming's stomach and felt the little ones rolling around mischievously in her stomach. He frowned and said coldly, "You don't have much time left in the void mother's stomach, so you'd better behave. Because the pain you've caused my wife now, when you come out, I'll return it tenfold." But Gu Mengmeng laughed and pointed at Elvis's brow. "You really have the ability to threaten your own son." Elvis's expression was rather solemn. His heart ached as he stroked the hair on Gu Mingming's forehead. "If I had known from the start that pregnancy would cause you so much trouble, I would have shot them to the ground." Pfft. Gu Mengmeng laughed even harder. But with this laugh, her stomach started to hurt. Frowning, Gu Mengmeng turned around to ask Elvis, "How long have I been pregnant?" Elvis wiped the fine beads of sweat off Gu Mingming's forehead and replied, "Counting the days, it should be a day or two. She should be giving birth soon." Gu Mengmeng came to a sudden realization. These little wolf cubs are not playing. They're ranking in my stomach to see who's going to be the boss. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Shaoxiang Academy, Feng Yu Huang, for the flowers. Chapter 294. Elvis was stunned for a moment and asked, "You're going to give birth?" Gu Mengmeng nodded. The pain coming from her lower abdomen was like the winter in the beast world. It came without warning and without any connection. In just 2 breaths' time, Gu Mengmeng was in so much pain that she could not speak. Grabbing onto Elvis's arm, Gu Mingming's hand trembled in pain. It's fine. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng to stabilize her body while howling at Leah, who was staying in the outermost cave. Before Leah entered, he already knew what had happened. Without another word, he set up the pot and started boiling snow water. This was common knowledge that Gu Mengmeng had told him previously. After the water boiled, he walked over and helped Elvis hug Gu Mingming's upper body. He used his tail to cushion Gu Mingming's waist so that Gu Mingming's waist did not need to be hung. Elvis held on to Gu Mingming's hand tightly, allowing her nails to dig into his flesh. However, he told her calmly and firmly, "It's all right, don't worry, I'm here." Elvis turned himself into a half-orc and covered Gu Mingming's stomach with his large tail. On one hand, it was to prevent her from catching a cold, and on the other hand, it was to block her vision. On the other hand, he transformed his head back into his wolf form and crawled under the curve of Gu Mingming's left leg. He stuck out his moist and warm tongue to lick the little wolf's head, where the skull could already be seen. Ah! Gu Mengmeng was in excruciating pain. She had no other choice but to scream. Leah hugged Gu Mingming's neck and pressed her against his chest. He kissed her forehead continuously and whispered into her ear, "Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Elvis and I are watching over you. You will be fine, you will definitely be fine." Gu Mengmeng felt as if thousands of beasts were galloping in her heart. She wanted to scold, "What's the use of guarding me? If you have the ability, why don't you take my place?" Unfortunately, she was in too much pain and didn't have the strength to curse. On Elvis's side, the little wolf's head had already squeezed out from Gu Mingming's body. Elvis immediately licked away the placenta on the little wolf's face to prevent it from suffocating to death. He tried to gently pull the little wolf's head out, to see if it could help Gu Mengmeng give birth faster and lessen the pain. But with this tug, Gu Mengmeng almost fainted, scaring Elvis so much that he did not dare to act rashly anymore. He just felt that these wolf cubs were getting uglier and were not likable at all. Dash! Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath and exerted force, feeling something slipping out from her body. That feeling was a little mysterious, just like when one was constipated and had to endure the pain to excrete. This time, Gu Mengmeng had used all her strength. Like a fish that had been stranded, she opened her mouth and panted heavily. While she was not in so much pain, she tilted her head and asked Elvis in a weak voice, "Hubby, are you done giving birth?" Elvis used his fastest speed to bite off the little wolf's umbilical cord, then licked the little wolf that was covered in blood clean. Turning his head back to human form, he sat up straight and used his other hand to grab the back of the little wolf's neck, bringing it in front of Gu Meng Meng. "The first one is born. It's not like you, it's so ugly." Gu Meng Meng let go of Elvis's hand and stretched both her hands forward to catch her first child. This feeling was very strange. The little fellow in her arms looked like a newborn husky no matter how she looked at it, but she could not treat it as a pet. Kissing its little face that still had its eyes tightly shut, Gu Meng Meng smiled blissfully. Aside from the topic, to be honest, I wrote this birth process when I watched the husky give birth. I have never seen a real wolf giving birth. If there are professionals who have seen wolves giving birth and found any loopholes, feel free to point them out. Thank you then. Thank you to the little baby from Shaoxiang Academy, Beard is like frost, for her comment. Chapter 295. Just as Gu Meng Meng wanted to tease her child, another wave of pain came from her lower abdomen. Gu Meng Meng frowned and glared at Elvis angrily. "There are more." Elvis nodded and replied, "Look at this stomach, there are at least 2 more. Elvis, divorce. I don't want to give birth anymore." Gu Meng Meng shouted, but at the same time, she started to exert force with all her might. With the first opening the way, the birth of the second one was obviously much smoother. Although Gu Meng Meng was still in so much pain that she could not speak, the pain coming from her lower body was not as heart-wrenching as when she gave birth to the first one. Maybe, it was because she was in too much pain that she became numb. No matter what, this was a good thing for Gu Meng Meng. Elvis's actions were swift as he licked the embryonic membranes clean one by one. Then, as if he was carrying old Wang's newborn huskies next door, he captured them one by one and placed them in front of Gu Meng Meng. He let Gu Meng Meng take a look at them before lining them up beside the first one, not allowing Gu Meng Meng to hug them anymore. Finally, all 3 were born. Gu Meng Meng heaved a sigh of relief and asked carefully, "This time, there are no more, right?" Elvis raised his head and looked at Gu Meng Meng with a face full of blood. He pursed his lips and answered, "There should be 1 more." Gu Meng Meng grabbed the water bowl at the side and smashed it on Elvis's head. She roared with a thick sobbing tone, "Divorce. I want a divorce." Elvis sighed and glared at the 3 little ones who were mumbling beside Gu Meng Meng. Then, he replied seriously, "Xiao Meng, just give up on this idea. Even if you beat me to death, I will never divorce you." Ah. Ah ah ah. Gu Meng Meng originally thought that after experiencing the torture of the first 3, the 4th one would be more successful. But the result was the exact opposite. The 4th one seemed to be bigger than the previous 3. It was so full that Gu Meng Meng felt like her body was going to break down. Yet, this fellow did not even have the chance to peek his little head out. Elvis also noticed the abnormality and hurriedly went back to lick Gu Meng Meng's wound. He used his saliva as a lubricant and even sucked lightly, trying to help Gu Meng Meng with external force. But all these were useless. Gu Meng Meng clenched her teeth and exerted all her strength, but the child's head was too big and was stuck there. After giving birth to the first 3 babies, Gu Meng Meng was actually exhausted. It would be fine if this baby was born successfully, but unfortunately, it was a big-headed baby. After a few rounds, Gu Meng Meng could not even breathe smoothly. Not to mention exerting strength, she did not even have the strength to scold Elvis. Elvis frowned and looked at the exhausted Gu Meng Meng, then looked at the 4th brother who was stuck there and could not even stretch his head out. He leaned forward and kissed Gu Meng Meng's forehead, saying in a low voice, "We have 3 children, that's enough." Gu Meng Meng was in a daze, but Elvis's words still touched a chord in her heart. She grabbed Elvis's hand weakly and asked in a breathless voice, "What do you want to do?" Elvis's blue eyes were filled with heartache and anger. He would not allow anyone to torture Gu Mengmeng like this, not even himself, not even his son. "I'll reach in, grind it up, and pull it out. This way, you won't be in pain." Elvis planted a light kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead and said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have let you suffer like this. Very soon, everything will be fine, trust me." Aside from the topic, on the first day, Susu was very nervous. "Thank you to all the babies who came to support Susu on the first day. Thank you for making me feel at ease. Remember to join the group activities." Chapter 296. No. Don't. Gu Mengmeng grabbed onto Elvis's hand. She did not know where she got the strength from, but she gripped onto Elvis's wrist tightly like a pair of pliers. Her curved eyebrows were knitted into a dead knot. She clenched her teeth and persisted in exerting strength again and again. Her face was pale and Gu Mengmeng clearly could not hold on any longer. "Xiao Meng, I love you." As Elvis spoke, he had already turned his hands into wolf claws and reached towards the little wolf cub stuck in Gu Mengmeng's body. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and growled with a hoarse voice, "If you dare to touch my child, I will die in front of you." Elvis froze and did not dare to move. He clenched his teeth but could not do anything to Gu Mengmeng. She had pinched his weak spot, making it impossible for him to resist. Seeing that Elvis had given up on harming the baby, Gu Mengmeng was slightly relieved. Trying her best to ignore the pain coming from her lower body, Gu Mengmeng adjusted her breathing again and again. When she felt that her energy had recovered slightly, she then said to Elvis, "Use your claws to cut open my flesh at the place where the baby is stuck. Be careful not to hurt the baby's head. This way, he can be born smoothly, and I won't have to suffer so much." Elvis frowned and looked at Gu Mengmeng without moving. "Listen to me. Where I come from, this is called a lateral incision. It's a very common fertility measure." Elvis was still frowning. After staying silent for a long time, he said, "I can't hurt you." Gu Mengmeng was really speechless. She struggled to straighten her body with all her might and hugged Elvis's head with one hand, pulling him in front of her. She pressed her forehead against Elvis's and said, "If you don't do this, the child and I will both die. Just a small cut on me now, and the baby and I will be safe. You're not hurting me. You're saving me and the baby." Elvis frowned, but he could not resist Gu Mengmeng's pleading gaze. In the end, he nodded and laid between Gu Mengmeng's legs again, aiming his sharp wolf claws at the place where the baby's skull was stuck. Elvis's gaze was deep. He was hesitating. Should he choose to kill the baby so that he would not hurt Gu Mengmeng and bear her hatred? Or should he listen to Gu Mengmeng and cut open her flesh to let this evil creature be born? "If you dare touch my child, I will kill myself in front of you." The image of Gu Mengmeng roaring with bloodshot eyes replayed in Elvis's mind. He was not afraid that Gu Mengmeng would hate him, he was not afraid that Gu Mengmeng would do anything to him, but he was afraid that she would hurt herself. The sharp nails trembled as they cut into Gu Mengmeng's flesh. Blood flowed down from the wound. Gu Mengmeng grasped the timing due to the pain and exerted force, almost fainting from the pain. But luckily, her lower abdomen was empty. She knew that the last baby had been born safely. Although Elvis was unwilling, he still licked this child who had caused Gu Mengmeng so much suffering, before placing him beside the other 3 little ones. Gu Mengmeng had already fainted from exhaustion. Elvis's heart ached as he took her from Li's arms. Without her bulging stomach, she was so light that she seemed to be weightless. This made Elvis feel extremely uneasy. He liked the chubby Gu Mengmeng more. He would rather have her twist his ear domineeringly and call herself queen than to have her quiet and lifeless like a doll whose soul had been hollowed out. Glancing at the 4 little ones sleeping quietly at the side, Elvis's emotions were extremely complicated. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Shaoxiang Academy, Hui Yinchan, for the diamonds and flowers. At the same time, congratulations to the baby for becoming the first scholar in this article. Thank you also. Thank you to the little babies from QQ Reading, The Long Winter, and The Rest of My Life, for their 99 reading points. Chapter 297. When Gu Mengmeng woke up again, it was already the afternoon of the second day. The four little fellows huddled into Gu Mengmeng's arms while whining. As long as Elvis and Leah dared to touch one of them, the other three would scream at the top of their lungs. In order not to disturb Gu Mengmeng, Elvis endured the thick veins on his forehead and glared at the four fellows making a mess. But it was a pity that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. Newborn wolf cubs were also not afraid of their fathers. No matter how Elvis released his powerful aura, the four little ones just huddled into Gu Mengmeng's arms while whining, completely unafraid of their own fathers. The moment Gu Mengmeng opened her eyes, she was melted by her four sons. With their eyes still closed, they rubbed their little pink noses into her arms. Their short limbs could not support their chubby bodies and they all laid on the bed, whimpering. Gu Mengmeng reached out her hand and tapped one of their little faces. The little fellow immediately turned his head and sucked on her finger with all his might. Hungry. Perhaps it was the nature of a mother and son. Gu Mengmeng instantly understood what her sons meant even though there was no verbal communication. She turned to look at Leah and Elvis. The former's face was as warm as a spring breeze while the latter's face was as cold as ice. Those who did not know better would have thought that this nest was Lee's cubs. Both of you go out for a while, I want to feed the kids. Actually, Gu Mengmeng wanted to ask Leah to leave, but she was too embarrassed to only chase one of them away, so she could only chase both of them away. But Leah shrugged his shoulders and said, "Are you sure you can feed all four of them at the same time, without any help?" Gu Mengmeng did not understand what Leah meant at first. When she followed Lee's gaze and lowered her head to look at her chest, her face instantly burned up. Damn it, there were only 2 milk bottles and 4 sons, what should she do? Elvis walked forward and picked up the third and second brothers with each hand, saying, "Feed those 2 first, I will look after these 2 first." Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah and thought to herself, "Why aren't you going out yet?" But Leah sat on the ground nonchalantly, looking like a good student waiting for the old professor to start his lesson. He had no intention of leaving at all. Gu Mengmeng held it in for a long while and the 2 sons in Elvis's arms wailed even more miserably, as if Elvis was not their father but a human trafficker. She could not wait any longer, her sons would starve to death if she waited any longer. Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and said that Elvis can stay behind to help me. Leah, why don't you help me prepare some food first? Lee's eyes narrowed with a smile and nodded in agreement before walking out. Once Leah went out, Gu Mengmeng hurriedly removed her clothes and started breastfeeding her 2 sons in a rather shameful position. The reason why this position was a little shameful was because if an Elvis who was lying on his back was added to the scene, it would be King live erotic scene. Gu Mengmeng was lying down to feed her sons while Elvis was focused on playing the role of a human trafficker. He completely ignored the struggles and protests of his 2 sons and only focused on watching his wife's flirtatious and seductive posture. Gu Mengmeng was a little embarrassed from Elvis's stare. Although she had already mated and the children were all convinced, it was still weird to be stared at like this. So Gu Mengmeng found a topic and asked, "Why feed these 2 first and then the other 2? Did you catch them randomly?" Elvis shook his head and said, "The one on your left is the first to be born and the one on your right is the last to be born. Those 2 are the strongest in the litter and have a higher chance of survival than the 2 in my hands. So there is a limited amount of food for them." Aside from the topic, thank you to Shaoxiang Academy's little baby, 69116691, My Lips Only Kiss Me, I am Shui Jin, for your votes. Chapter 298. Gu Mengmeng was really dumbfounded after listening to him. What kind of theory was that? Does it mean that we should prioritize protecting the two stronger ones and let the two weaker ones live if they can? If they can't, then we'll just forget about it. Return my sons to me. Angered, Gu Mengmeng pointed at Elvis's nose and roared, "It's all flesh that fell off from my body, so you're not the one who's in excruciating pain, so you can say it so easily? Hurry and return my sons, I don't need your help." Elvis knew very well that he must have said something wrong again, but the problem was that he did not know which word he said wrong. In order to not make Gu Mengmeng even angrier, he obediently placed the second brother and the husband back on the bed. Gu Mengmeng circled her arms and the two that were carried away by Elvis flew into her arms. They raised their heads and howled like babies. Even if Gu Mengmeng did not understand what they were saying, she could roughly guess that their sons were complaining. So she kissed them one by one and coaxed them gently, "Don't be afraid, Mummy is here. You may have a fake daddy, but it's all right, Mummy will protect you. Be good, it'll be your turn after brother and brother finish eating." The first brother seemed to have understood Gu Mengmeng's words. He smacked his lips and let go of Gu Mengmeng's chest. He flipped over and rolled to one side, giving up his spot to his brother. The two children's hands and feet were weak, and they could only wriggle forward to fight for the only position available. Gu Mengmeng could not really tell whether it was the second brother or the third brother who managed to snatch it. Anyway, there was only one left and he did not manage to snatch it. Feeling extremely wronged, he laid on Gu Mengmeng's chest and twisted his soft body, howling in a childish voice. The fourth brother had no intention of moving away and continued sucking with all his might with his cheeks puffed up. Gu Mengmeng saw that the chest had already been stuffed down. If someone else did not come up, the one who had not eaten would definitely starve. So she gently held on to the fourth brother's butt and pried him away from her chest. But this little ancestor was like a powerful suction cup. He stretched his neck out and sucked in his mouth, refusing to let go. Gu Mengmeng's breasts were hurting from the pull. She took a deep breath and smacked the little butt of the fourth brother, saying, "Brothers have to take care of each other. If you don't let go, I will be the last one to feed you in the future. When the time comes, your other brothers will also protect their food like you, and you can only starve." She did not know if the fourth brother understood Gu Mengmeng's words, or if he was full, or if it was simply because he was pulled too far away and could not reach. Anyway, the moment Gu Mengmeng finished speaking, he let go. Gu Mengmeng placed him on the bed and the little fellow rolled to the side of the first brother. He rested his chin on the back of the first brother and yawned lazily. Kicking his chubby legs, he fell into a deep sleep. The second brother and third brother were eating happily when Leah came in with a stone pot. He was still smiling and glanced at Elvis, who was left to the side, giving him a sympathetic look. Then, he directly brushed past Elvis without any intention to speak up for him. He directly placed the pot on the fire and stirred it while saying, "The appetite of wolf cubs is very big. No matter how much milk you have, you will not be able to feed these four little fellows. I used the bones to boil some soup. You and the babies can drink some to replenish your nutrients. When the rainy season comes next year, I will go to the mountains to catch a female wolf for you to breastfeed. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Xiaoxiang Academy, Milk Bait Ho, and Rabbit G drinking tea, for the flowers. Love you guys moi." Chapter 299. Gu Mengmeng was still kneeling on the bed in a breastfeeding position, while the second and third brothers were still drinking milk with gusto. Damn it, Leah walked in so naturally, making Gu Mengmeng feel embarrassed even if she screamed. She pulled a piece of beast skin to cover herself awkwardly, then glared at Elvis, who was still in a reflective state but still did not know what he did wrong. Leah scooped the meat soup into a small bowl and a larger stone plate. He placed the stone plate beside the bed, then picked up the first and fourth brothers with each hand and placed them beside the stone plate. She did not know if it was because they were full from drinking milk or because the taste of the bone soup was not as fragrant as their mother's milk, but the two little fellows were completely indifferent to the bone soup. Leah patted their little heads lightly and shook his head helplessly. He looked at Gu Meng Meng and said, "Wolves learn their eating habits from their mother. They will eat whatever you teach them to eat. So, here." As Leah spoke, he placed the small bowl beside the stone plate, indicating for Gu Meng Meng to demonstrate how to drink the soup. Gu Meng Meng sighed and looked at her 4 babies. With her small body, she really could not feed them to their fullest, so she used one hand to support her body and the other to pick up a small bowl to finish the soup. Then, she showed the empty bowl to her 2 sons and said, "The taste is not bad, my babies are good, do you want to try it?" That. Leah rubbed his nose and said, "The cubs have not opened their eyes yet, so they cannot see your actions. Their senses are mainly through the flow of air and the contact of their bodies. Holding a bowl with one hand is too difficult for them. They won't be able to learn it." Gu Meng Meng looked at Leah with a dumbfounded expression, completely unable to understand what he meant. Leah knelt beside Gu Meng Meng in a seductive manner, then lowered his head and stuck out his tongue to lick the side of the bowl lightly. Then, he used his head to nudge the first brother. Unfortunately, the first brother did not appreciate it at all and had no intention of learning at all. He just twisted his body and snuggled into Gu Mingming's arms, then whimpered as if he was complaining to his mother that there was a weird uncle who kept touching his body and it was so annoying. Gu Mengmeng forced a smile with her stiff lips and asked, "I also have to lick and drink like that?" Leah nodded his head seriously. "You have to teach them in a way that they can learn." Gu Mengmeng looked at the 2 little fellows in the beast skin who were howling in protest because they could no longer suck milk. She hardened her heart. What was Face worth? Compared to his son, self-esteem and whatnot were simply too weak, okay? Gu Mengmeng tidied up her clothes and removed the beast skin covering her body. She gently picked up the 2 little ones who had not eaten their fill and placed them at the side of the stone plate. The 5 of them formed a circle that looked like a sunflower. Gu Mengmeng suppressed her strong sense of shame and stuck out her pink tongue to lick the plate lightly. Then, she looked at her 4 babies in anticipation. Unfortunately, the little fellows completely did not understand what was going on and still had a look of disdain on their faces. They had no intention of learning from their mothers to drink the soup. The 3rd brother even screamed at Gu Mengmeng, clearly wanting to drink milk. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah helplessly. Leah leaned back next to Gu Mengmeng and once again demonstrated the action of licking the soup. Then, he kissed Gu Mingming's face intimately and used his mouth to send her little face to the side of the plate. When he reached the edge of the plate, he licked the bone soup again. His long and affectionate eyes were smiling all along as he stared at Gu Mingming's shy little face. Aside from the topic, thank you Xiaoxiang Academy, Dingranpu, diamonds, flowers, and even voted for me. I'm so touched, thank you baby. Chapter 300. Gu Mengmeng blushed and retracted her gaze. She pursed her lips and followed Li's example. She first licked a mouthful of the bone soup, then kissed the little face of the youngest lying beside her. She used her mouth to push the little head of the youngest towards the side of the plate, then licked the soup on the plate lightly. She did not swallow it, but used her tongue that was still wet with the soup to lick the little mouth of the youngest. The youngest stuck out his tongue to lick his own mouth, as if he was quite satisfied with the taste, so he lowered his head to lick the soup. The sensitivity of his little tongue was much stronger than Gu Mingming's, and he enjoyed the soup with a loud smack. Gu Mengmeng felt a great sense of achievement, but she did not dare to make a loud noise, as she was afraid of scaring her sons. Then, she would use the same method to guide the other 3 sons. But what frustrated her was that the other 3 fellows firmly believed that the bone soup was not as fragrant as their mother's milk. Other than reluctantly finishing the soup that Gu Mengmeng had licked onto their mouths, they were completely unwilling to lower their noble heads. Gu Mengmeng looked at the youngest whose belly was already round from eating, then at the other three little fellows who were still crying piteously for food, before looking at Leah with a pleading gaze. Leah shrugged his shoulders and stood up. He retreated to Elvis's side and said, "I'll leave the rest to you." Elvis nodded, picked up the youngest and passed him to Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng received the youngest blankly and hugged him in her arms. Then, she watched as Elvis's face darkened, using his throat to growl at the other three little ones. If Elvis was not in his human form, Gu Mengmeng did not doubt that she would see the expression of a wolf baring his teeth to scare his enemies in television dramas. Gu Mengmeng frowned. What was wrong with this person? He had a face full of anticipation when he begged her to give birth to children. She thought he liked babies a lot, but in the end, did he get addicted to scaring his sons every day? Gu Mengmeng was about to flare up when she realized that the three little ones who had refused to lower their heads to drink the soup, actually lowered their heads obediently and started to lick the soup plate pitifully. Although they looked rather pitiful, it was still better than starving. Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief and resisted the urge to scold Elvis. She just gently caressed the back of the fourth brother, as if the one who was scolded was the fourth brother and she was comforting him. It didn't take long for the three little guys to finish the bowl of bone soup. She groaned twice, lay crookedly on the edge of the plate and began to sleep. Gu Mengmeng looked at the four heartless brothers and suddenly laughed. She carried them up one by one and arranged them in a row on the beast skin. Then, she took out a softer beast skin and covered them with it. Only then did she carefully climb up from the bed and scoop 2 pieces of meat from the pot to eat. "You can eat meat. Don't you feel disgusted?" Elvis was a little worried. Ever since she became pregnant, Gu Mengmeng refused to touch meat no matter what. She always said that there was a gamey smell and it made her feel disgusted. Gu Mengmeng sniffed and said, "It's still a little disgusting, but we still have to eat even if it's disgusting. Otherwise, the children's nutrition will not be able to keep up and they will fall sick easily." Elvis sighed and scooped Gu Mengmeng into his arms, letting her sit on his lap to eat so that she would not catch a cold. Elvis rested his head on Gu Mengmeng's neck and said with a little grievance, "Other people can't even think about getting pregnant without a few years. How did you get pregnant in such a short time?" Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and asked, "You're still unhappy that I gave birth to a son for you?" Elvis nodded and said with grievance, "Not happy, very unhappy. I feel that you are treating them better than me now. You glared at me a few times because of them and even scolded me. You even said you wanted to divorce me and even threatened me. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling of Xiaoxiang Academy. As long as I don't die, you will always be my subject. 8 evaluation votes, nouveau riche looking for a mistress." Chapter 301. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's mouth twitched, not knowing whether to cry or laugh. "Hey, Elvis, do you still want your black-bellied and bloodthirsty boss image? Can you still be saved when your image has collapsed to this extent?" Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng, his voice carrying a tinge of grievance. He wagged his black, gilded tail twice, looking like a husky that destroyed his house. He rested his chin on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder and tilted his head outwards, facing the side of Gu Mengmeng's face. He whispered into her ear, "Most importantly, because of them, I have not touched you for 2 whole months, cough cough." Gu Mengmeng choked on the mouthful of meat soup she just drank because of Elvis's words. She looked at Elvis who was begging for sex with her with a face full of shock. Gu Mengmeng did not doubt that having sex with Elvis was even more painful than giving birth to the fourth brother. Just thinking about it, Gu Mengmeng felt the tear in her lower body starting to hurt again. She frowned and said with a weak voice, "I have to go through confinement, it still hurts now." Elvis nodded his head pitifully and said, "I know, Leah told me when he was stitching you up. Your healing ability is not as good as a male's and this wound needs at least 1 to 2 months to recover. Even if it recovers, you can't mate for now." As Elvis said that, he looked at his 4 sons who were sleeping soundly on the bed with snot coming out of their noses. The disdain on his face was especially obvious. Gu Mengmeng was in a state of confusion. She looked at Elvis in a daze for a long time before asking, "You said Leah stitched me up?" Elvis nodded and said, "Yes, it's the place where you made me cut. You said that it's called a side incision." "Yes, it's that side incision wound. If left unattended, it would keep bleeding. I couldn't stop it even after licking it for a long time, so I could only ask Leah to stitch it up for you. Luckily you taught him how to stitch before, or else I wouldn't know what to do." Gu Mengmeng really did not want to live anymore. She said with a face full of despair, "You even licked it in front of Leah." Elvis nodded and said, "Because I couldn't stop the blood no matter how I licked it, so I asked Leah to come over and help me check if the way I licked was wrong." Gu Mengmeng held onto Elvis's shoulders with both hands and looked at him with a pleading gaze. She asked carefully, You were the only one licking, right?" Elvis thought about it seriously, then nodded and said, "Before you accept Leah, I will not let him touch the places that are covered by your clothes. I remember you saying that only a mate can touch a place covered by clothes. So I just let him watch, not let him lick." Gu Mengmeng did not feel happy at all. She shook Elvis with all her might and said, "You even know that you can't let others touch the places covered by clothes. Then why did you let Leah watch you lick, Elvis didn't understand and said, "He just looked, he didn't touch, really." Gu Mengmeng slapped her own head and looked at Elvis with a grievance, saying, "But he was the one who stitched it up for me." Elvis came to a sudden realization and with a shocked face, he frowned and said, "The situation was too dangerous then. If I didn't let him stitch you up, your blood would keep flowing. If you're really too angry, slap him 2 more times. Just like the previous time, slap, 2 times, then you won't be angry anymore, alright?" Aside from the topic, thank you to Shaoxiang Academy's Holly Lam for the fresh flowers and evaluation tickets. Chapter 302. Gu Mengmeng watched as Elvis imitated the way she slapped Leah the last time and felt like crying. She gave Elvis 2 slaps in the air and said, "Damn it, I should slap you to death first." Elvis smiled and hugged Gu Mengmeng back into his arms. He coaxed her gently and said, "If hitting me can make you feel better, then go ahead. Do you want to hit the left side? Or the right side?" Gu Mengmeng raised her hand. Facing Elvis's sincere and gentle look, she could not bear to hit him. She swung her hand and punched his chest. She snorted and turned her head to ignore him. Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's little hand and placed it in his palm. He carefully touched every inch of skin on her hand and said, "Winter is almost over. When the snow melts, everyone will see Leah walking out of our cave. By then, even if you did not mate with him, he will already be a member of our family. So, strictly speaking, he cannot be considered as someone else." Gu Mengmeng was stunned. She tilted her head and asked Elvis, "What do you mean?" Elvis always knew that Gu Mengmeng had no concept of the rules in the beast world. So he patiently explained, "Do you still remember Barit's request before winter?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and replied, "I remember, he said he wanted to stay in our cave. Didn't you reject him on the spot?" Elvis nodded and said, "I rejected him because I know you don't want to mate with him and you don't have any special feelings for him. So I cannot let him enter our cave. Because once he winters in our cave, it means that he is a member of your family that you have accepted. It's just that his status is extremely low and he does not have the right to mate with you. He can only be used as hunting labor during the rainy and dry seasons to provide food for the family. During winter, he will be used as your food reserve. This way, no female in the tribe will be willing to mate with him. If he regrets one day and wants to leave this status, he can only leave Saint Nazir and find a new tribe. However, there are very few tribes that are willing to take in single males. Moreover, if you meet someone who left you after knowing that he had been your food reserve, no female in the new tribe will be willing to mate with him. Even if they have already mated, there is a high possibility that they will be abandoned. So, generally speaking, after entering a family as food reserves, there's basically no way out. The better ones might be accepted by the females and become one of their partners, but such cases were rare. Most of them became food during the winter to provide for the females' hunger and warmth for the season. And what's worse, is that after experiencing countless winters and summers, the females even forget that they have such a male by their side. Then, on a certain hunting day, they leave and never return, but no one knows. It's as if there has never been such a person in this world. This is the reason why I didn't agree to Barit entering our cave. If you are unwilling to accept him in the end, then he can only be kept by your side as a pet beast for the rest of his life. With your kindness, in the end, you will either have to accept him or suffer because of your conscience. No matter what, I'm not happy to see it, so I rejected him. After listening to Elvis, Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a long time. She slowly turned her head towards the direction of the cave entrance and said softly, "But I let Leah stay in." Out of topic, thank you Xiaoxiang Academy, Yun Yang Xiyan, for the flowers. I love you. Chapter 303. Elvis heaved a sigh of relief because Gu Mingming's sentence should have been said by him, but he had deliberated for a long time. No matter how he put it, it sounded like a rebuke and he did not want to rebuke Gu Mengmeng. Elvis felt his heart ache when Gu Mengmeng said it herself. He hugged Gu Mengmeng and said, "Leah and Barit are different. I know you like him." Gu Mengmeng turned around and asked Elvis, "You are always trying to incite me to accept Leah. Don't you feel jealous? Aren't you worried that I will have a change of heart?" Elvis thought about it seriously and nodded. "Of course I'm worried, how can I not be worried? When you were dating him in the past, you could not even see me in your eyes. At that time, I was extremely upset every day. But because I was upset, I don't want you to experience the same thing. Since you like him, then let's be together. I only have one request. That is, his mark do not appear on your chest. Or else, I might not be able to take it." Gu Mengmeng sighed. She really did not know how to respond to Elvis's generosity. She thought about it and said, "Why don't we ask Leah to leave before winter ends? That way, no one will know that he has been staying in our cave for so long." Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng and smiled. "Looks like pregnancy makes one foolish for 3 years is true." Hiss. Gu Mengmeng glared at him. Elvis immediately shut his mouth and changed his words. "Did you forget that Ian from the Eagle Owl tribe came to our cave before? Although the bird's tribe's sense of smell is not as good as ours, their eyesight is extremely good. I heard that no detail can escape their eyes. He stood at the entrance for so long that day and probably knew that Leah was staying in our cave. Unless Leah and I kill all 32 of them now and leave no one alive, we can't hide the fact that Leah is staying in our cave during winter." Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip and kept quiet. She raised her head again and looked at Elvis helplessly. "I only hoped that he could save you, so when he suggested staying here, I agreed without a second thought. I didn't know things would turn out like this. Even if you and I join hands, it is almost impossible to kill 32 eagle owls at the same time. Don't forget, they can fly. As long as he ascends to the heavens, there's nothing we can do." Leo was already leaning against the entrance of the cave. He tilted his head and looked at them with a faint smile. Gu Mengmeng felt guilty and lowered her head. "Leah, I'm sorry." Leah took 2 steps forward, hugging his knees as he squatted down. He accommodated Gu Mingming's height and looked straight into her eyes. His long and affectionate eyes were filled with seriousness. His large furry tail swayed behind him, one black and one white, reflecting off Elvis's tail. His two pure white fox ears were on top of his head. His demon-like posture was filled with an immortal aura that was not tainted by dust. It was so clean that it was like a gust of wind that blew through the snow. It was so cool that one did not dare to breathe, afraid that they would pollute the air. I've said it before. I want to hear your confession more than an apology. Leo looked at Gu Mengmeng seriously. His smile was so gentle that it made her heart ache. In order to not make you hate me, I have been working very hard to guard the boundaries you mentioned. No matter how much I want to hug you, I can only hug myself like this. I clearly want to kiss you, but I can only look at you from afar. I feel very satisfied to be able to do something for you. But if you still won't allow me to stay. Aside from the topic, thank you for the 20 diamonds from Shaoxiang Academy's Bloodstained City. Currently, you are the person with the highest fan value in Wenwen and also the second scholar in this article. Thank you, baby, for your support. Chapter 304. Leah paused and leaned his body forward slightly. He whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, then, there's only one way left. Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes and asked, what way? Leah pursed his lips and his slender fingers brushed across his chest. He said in an inviting tone, eat me before the snow melts. What nonsense are you talking about? Gu Mengmeng stood up immediately. But because she stood up too quickly, she felt a little dizzy. Her vision blurred and she almost fell. Leah quickly caught Gu Mengmeng and smiled, I finally got to hug you again. It's enough for me to hug you like this once before I die. Li's smile was very gentle, so gentle that it made one feel hopeless. Gu Mengmeng's heart was throbbing in pain. She calmed herself down and stabilized her hands. She pushed Leah away and said, is there something wrong with you? I haven't even finished eating the food in this cave, why would I eat you? Do you think I'm a skeleton spirit? Leah tilted his head and touched his heart as if he was wronged. He said, but I heard that the heart of a snow fox has the effect of prolonging one's life. Gu Mengmeng was about to hit him when Leah touched his stomach again and said, the flesh on my stomach is also very smooth and tender. It tastes much better than normal wild beasts. And I'm a third-level orc. If you eat me, your body will definitely be much stronger than it is now. That way, you won't fall sick after playing in the snow for a while. Gu Mengmeng wanted to cry but no tears came out. She looked at Leah and then at Elvis and sneered, are you sure one is a wolf and the other is a fox? Neither of you is a fox wearing a wolf's skin or is a wolf wearing a fox's skin. Why the hell are you both so eager to let others eat you? Isn't it good to live well? Look, this world is so beautiful, right? Leah caressed Gu Mengmeng's face gently, his eyes filled with greed. He wanted to take one more look at her, one more look, as if he wanted to carve her into his eyes. He said with deep affection and loneliness, if you don't want me anymore, this world will not be beautiful at all. Rather than living in a purgatory filled with torment, I might as well fuse my flesh and blood into your body and become one with you, using another method to protect you once. At least I can die a worthy death. Leah paused and recalled the time when he was fooling around by the stream before he confessed to Mengmeng. She thought he was going to eat her up and begged for mercy in his arms while crying. He was vexed. Was he not affectionate enough? Why would this little fellow think of a romantic atmosphere as a bloody and violent scene? Thus, he deliberately scared her, and she really closed her eyes and waited for death. She was obviously trembling violently, but she still pretended to be unafraid of death. Back then and now, it was so similar. Once upon a time, you begged me not to eat you. You said you wouldn't choose between food and partners. Leah said while caressing Gu Mengmeng's neck. That was the place where he once planted strawberries. Li's smile was filled with the warmth of memories. His gaze overlapped with that day, looking at Gu Mengmeng seductively and affectionately. Using the same tone as that day, he said, "Since you don't want to choose, let me choose for you." Leah slowly lifted his silver hair and revealed his snow-white neck to Gu Mengmeng. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with his perfect side profile and said, "It's all right, it won't hurt, eat me up, then we will fuse together and we will never be separated again." Gu Mengmeng was stunned. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, Max Yangying, for the evaluation ticket. Thank you. Chapter 305. Gu Mengmeng remembered that Leah had said that to her before. But at that time, sighing, Gu Mengmeng pushed Leah away and said, "Stop fooling around, you know I won't eat you." Leah was very dejected, as if he was very disappointed with Gu Mengmeng's unparalleled ability. He patted his stomach and muttered to himself, "It should be delicious, why don't I like it?" Gu Mengmeng was really speechless. First it was Barit, then Elvis, and now Leah was the same. What was wrong with the males in the beast world? The boundless world was rich in resources and there were so many things to eat. Why did they have to suggest others to eat them? Did they think they were mantises? Gu Mengmeng returned to Elvis's arms and looked up at Leah, saying, "Sit down, let's eat something together." Leah nodded and sat cross-legged beside Elvis. He placed his elbows on his knees and his hands on his cheeks. He looked at Gu Mengmeng and smiled, saying, "Are you trying to feed me until I'm fat before eating?" Gu Mengmeng raised her little fist and made an action as if she was going to hit someone, saying, "Don't provoke me, I just gave birth and can't take fright. Don't keep telling me scary stories about people eating people. If you scare me until I lose my milk, I will fight you for my sons." Leah shrugged his shoulders and finally avoided this topic. Gu Mengmeng scooped a big piece of meat from the pot and passed it to Elvis, saying, "You took care of the 5 of us for an entire day and I didn't see you eat anything. I must have tired you out when I was pregnant previously, right?" Elvis did not reject her, because winter was really about to end and the food stored in the cave was enough for them to eat until the rainy season when their prey would come out. In order not to waste food, Elvis always chewed the bones and swallowed them, because he realized that cooked bones were much easier to digest than raw ones. Rather than throwing them away, he would rather eat them. So most of the time, he would secretly pick up the leftover bones from Gu Mengmeng and eat them, so as to save as much food for Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng was also used to Elvis's way of eating bones without spitting out the bones, so she would usually choose those with more meat and less bones for Elvis to eat, afraid that he would suffer from indigestion and end up with stones. Elvis swallowed his food and kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face. "Compared to your suffering, how can my suffering be considered as any hardship?" Gu Mengmeng smiled, feeling very touched. She had an older sister who worked as a white-collar worker in a company before she got married. Her monthly salary was less than 10,000, and she was very confident wherever she went. Not long after they got married, she got pregnant. Her husband wanted her to stay at home to raise the baby, and she agreed. However, once she quit her job, it would be difficult for her to go back to work. When she was pregnant, she had to wait to give birth. After giving birth, she had to wait to go to kindergarten. After kindergarten, she had to wait to go to primary school. However, before the child could go to primary school, her husband had cheated on her. The reason was that he was fed up with his children's crying and his wife's complaints. He even asked his sister, which man would want to go home to see an old woman every day. Little Missy said that she had given birth to a child for him, so how could he be so inconsiderate towards her? The man snorted disdainfully and asked, "Which woman doesn't know how to give birth? This is your duty." That time, the sister hugged the child and gulped down beer, crying to Gu Mengmeng, "I'm not afraid of suffering with him, I'm not afraid of suffering for him, I'm afraid that he can't see everything I've done. I don't want to live a luxurious life, I just want some words of comfort. That's all." Aside from the topic, thank you to my QQ reading baby, Bianing Lu, for your 999 reading points, and thank you for your message. Chapter 306. That night, Gu Mengmeng did not return home. Instead, she stayed in the hotel with her drunk sister and helped her take care of her young son. But the next day, Gu Mengmeng was woken up by the police. A bone-piercing cold wind blew in through the open window. And that window was the exit that the sister had used to escape from this hopeless world with her child. Gu Mengmeng sighed. She did not know why she would suddenly recall this memory. She just felt a little disappointed. She looked up at Elvis and said, "Thank you for seeing everything I did. Thank you for comforting me." Elvis sharply sensed that Gu Mengmeng's emotions were not right. He kissed her lips lightly and asked, "What's wrong? Something on your mind?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and smiled. "Maybe it's the legendary depression." Elvis looked at Leah, who shook his head to indicate that he had never heard of it. He did not know what to do either. Gu Mengmeng patted her face to cheer herself up. Then, she smiled and said, "All right, I'm fine. Don't worry." Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and gently stroked her hair. He comforted her gently, "Don't be depressed, don't be depressed, don't worry. You have me." Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "I know, I have a good hubby." Elvis accepted Gu Mengmeng's compliment with a smile. The word hubby was especially pleasing to the ears. "Hey, my good hubby, shouldn't we be doing something serious now?" Gu Mengmeng asked with a smile. Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng's lower body thoughtfully. Then, he shook his head firmly and said, "Although I really want to, your body has not recovered yet. I can't do it for now." Gu Mengmeng's melancholy mood was instantly broken by Elvis. She picked up her chopsticks and knocked on Elvis's head, saying, "What are you thinking about?" "I'm talking about serious matters." Elvis said seriously, "It's serious matters. But Xiao Meng, you really need to rest." Gu Mengmeng really did not know whether to laugh or cry. She shook her head and said, "I know I need to rest. The serious matters I'm talking about are not the unserious matters you are thinking about. I'm talking about our 4 babies. We can't possibly call them first, second, third and fourth every day, right? Isn't it time to give it a proper name?" Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng and thought seriously for a while before replying, "Whatever, you can call me whatever you like." Pfft. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to spit blood on Elvis's face. She complained, "Can you be more attentive? He's your son after all." "What do you mean by, whatever?" Elvis said, "My name was randomly chosen by me after I became an adult." "Leah, what about you?" Leah thought for a moment before replying, "I snatched my name from someone else after I became an adult." The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched as she asked, "Is there a need to fight over names?" Leah nodded and said, "I think his name sounds nice, so I killed him and his name belongs to me. If one day, someone likes my name, they can also challenge me. Many people are like this." Elvis added, "Yeah, I snatched 2 names in the past too, but after snatching them, I felt that they didn't sound good, so I just gave up and randomly picked one for myself. I've met people who tried to steal my name before, but they never beat me up." Gu Mengmeng's face was filled with despair. "It's just a damn name, what's there to snatch? If you don't believe me, you can just go to the village entrance and shout, 'Dog leftover.' Even if there aren't 10 people, at least 8 will respond to you." According to the logic of the beast world, the strongest dog leftover in the village has to strangle all the other dog leftovers in the village to monopolize the name, dog leftover. Aside from the topic, thank you to the QQ reading baby, Lazy Doswang, for the 399 reading points. Chapter 307. Gu Mengmeng looked at her 4 sons with snot dripping from their noses and fell into a deep dilemma. What if, The name was too nice to hear. Would he be kidnapped like the son of a rich man or something? Scenario: XXX, ask your mother to hand over your name or else I will bite you to death. Gu Mengmeng shook her head, feeling like her life was about to collapse. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Elvis and held his hands with both her hands. Hubby, you will protect our sons, right? Elvis looked at the 4 little ones and said in disdain, male cubs can protect themselves, I will only protect you. Gu Mengmeng nodded. That's good. You protect me and I will protect my sons. If anyone dares to snatch my sons' names in the future, you will help me to send them flying, all right? Elvis was a little dizzy from Gu Mengmeng's words, but he nodded instinctively. All right, I will listen to you. Gu Mengmeng felt more at ease and heaved a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to say something, she turned to look at Leah. She thought for a moment and asked, Leah, I heard that you are quite close with the beast deity. Leah sneered. You are more familiar with the beast deity. I heard that the beast deity is your beast father. Gu Mengmeng slapped her thighs in joy. That's right. The beast deity is my beast father and also my son's grandfather. Who dares to snatch the beast deity's grandson's name? I will go home and complain to my dad and ask him to take care of these demons. Gu Mengmeng was completely relieved at that thought. She said in a refreshed manner, Come, let's brainstorm and name our 4 little ones. Leah shrugged. Do I have the right to name my children? Gu Mengmeng thought for a moment and smiled awkwardly. She had never heard of a midwife naming their children. Their parents were all around. It would be weird to ask a doctor to name their children, right? But it would also be awkward to say no. So Gu Mengmeng said, Sure, of course you can. Tell us what names you want to give your children. If it sounds good, we can also adopt it. Leah pointed at the 4 little ones and said, Mengmeng, want, Leah, mate. Pfft. Gu Mengmeng's awkwardness had already broken through the heavens. She smiled at Leah and said, Mengmeng is my name, Leah is your name. Do you mean to ask the eldest to kill me and the third to kill you? Leah shook his head and said, Gu Mengmeng is your name, so he can be called Mengmeng. As for Leah, I'm willing to give this name to him. I'll snatch someone else's name. Hey, what do you think of Barit's name? Nothing much. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed and said, I think your naming skills are just a so-so, you better forget about names. Leo was not angry and nodded his head to indicate that he had no objections. Then, he turned his body seductively and leaned against Gu Mengmeng, wagging his tail like a pet. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and asked, What are you doing? Leo blinked his long and narrow eyes at Gu Mengmeng and said, A beast pet should look like a beast pet. Since you're not going to eat me, then I'll just be a vixen. Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes and could not be bothered with him. She turned to look at Elvis and asked, What about you? Do you have any good suggestions? Elvis thought for a moment and pointed at the 4 little ones and said, Scram further away, scram further away, scram further away, scram scram. Aside from the topic. Chapter 308. Gu Mengmeng deeply felt Elvis's disdain towards the 4 little ones. She started to reflect, did she neglect Elvis after giving birth to her sons? But it had only been a day since she gave birth to her sons. Did Elvis need to hold such a deep grudge? Elvis saw that Gu Mengmeng did not seem to be very satisfied with this name, so he thought for a while and said, From me, wife, beside, scram. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's shoulder and said, Don't worry, even if I have sons, I will still love you the most. After all, I already have 4 sons, but only 1 husband, so you don't have to show such strong animosity towards them. Especially the 4th, it was so hard for me to give birth to him, on account of me suffering so much. Can you not ask him to scram every time you open your mouth? Elvis was silent, then looked at Gu Mengmeng with a grievance and said, "Now you, actually lied to me for them." Gu Mengmeng looked like she was wronged and said with the most sincere eyes, "I didn't. When did I lie to you?" Elvis pointed at Gu Mengmeng's chest angrily and said, "You have never fed me like this before, but you let them eat for a long time today." Gu Mengmeng almost choked to death by her own saliva and her face instantly turned red as she punched Elvis. Then, she looked awkwardly at Leah, who was lying on her knees and looking up at her. Leah seemed to be thinking about something, then his lips curled up and he flipped over to lie on his back, asking Gu Mengmeng, "Do you still lack sons? The ones with big furry tails?" Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and thought to herself, "Damn it, you still wanted me to call you daddy yesterday and now you want to call me mommy. What kind of seniority is this?" Gu Mengmeng slapped Lee's face and said, "I am tired, I need to sleep for a while. I will think of the names after I wake up." As Gu Mengmeng said, she stood up from Elvis's arms and walked towards the bed. She did not even take 2 steps before Elvis pulled her from behind. Gu Mengmeng turned around and saw Elvis looking at her as if he was looking at Chin Shimmy. She said with resentment and hatred, "How dare you say you are not lying to me? You used to hug me to sleep in the past, but now you are abandoning me to hug them." Gu Mengmeng had no choice but to return to Elvis's side and pounce into his arms. "I'm not going to hug them, I'm going to hug you." "Yes." Elvis coolly responded with a single syllable, but the corners of his lips could not help but curl up, his eyes filled with pride. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to say that she had never seen anyone fight with his son to such an extent. How could he persuade her to accept Leo with this kind of behavior? When that time comes, wouldn't there be a Liaozhi's wolf demon versus the fox demon at home every day? Just as Gu Mengmeng was thinking, Elvis had already walked to the side of the bed. He lifted his leg and kicked the cushion that the 4 little ones were sleeping on. The 4 little ones were like cocktails that slid across the bar counter in a bar, and were kicked to a corner together with the cushion. Elvis laughed coldly. If he had to say a line, it would definitely be, "Small fry, fighting with me." Gu Mengmeng's heart ached, and just when she wanted to stretch her neck to take a look, Elvis looked at her with a face full of grievance. Gu Mengmeng thought that since the 4 little ones did not move at all, they must still be sleeping soundly and should be fine. Thus, she could only smile embarrassedly and lay in Elvis's arms obediently, being an obedient little woman. Elvis then nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, he said to Leah, "You sleep on the outside and block her. Don't let Xiao Meng fall onto the ground." Leah smiled and nodded his head. Then, the 2 of them sandwiched Gu Mengmeng in the middle, one on the left and one on the right. Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched as she thought to herself, are they working together with the secondary enemy to attack the primary enemy? Are they planning to work together with Leah to fight with my 4 sons for her favor? Aside from the topic. Chapter 309. When Gu Mengmeng woke up, she finally understood why Elvis wanted Leah and him to accompany her to sleep. This was a 360-degree isolation belt without any blind spots. The 4 little ones were really hungry, but they could not climb over the 2 huge black and white mountains in front of them. Just by getting a little closer, they were either kicked by someone or, coincidentally, swept by someone's tail, causing them to tumble out. The moment Gu Mengmeng woke up, the 4 little ones screamed at the top of their lungs with their childish voices. Although Gu Mengmeng could not understand what they were saying, she could tell from their expressions that they were extremely aggrieved. Their cries for food made Gu Mengmeng's heart melt into water. "Oh, my babies, come to mummy quickly." Gu Mengmeng kicked Elvis away and arched her butt, pushing Leah to the side. Then, she opened her arms wide and faced her 4 sons with a welcoming posture. The 4 little ones looked as if they had been abducted and sold. When they saw their mummy, they were extremely affectionate. Spreading their 4 short legs, they rolled and crawled into Gu Mengmeng's arms. They stuck out their pink tongues and licked Gu Mingming's face and neck crazily. Gu Mengmeng patted their little heads one by one and comforted them. All right. Mummy knows that you guys have suffered. Gu Mengmeng had only slept for one night, but she could already feel her breasts swelling up badly. Both sides of her chest had hardened and it would hurt at the slightest touch. Gu Mengmeng laid on her side, with her back facing one male who looked aggrieved and the other gloating. She used the beast skin to cover her body, then unbuttoned the front of her shirt and carried the two who had not eaten their fill in the morning into her arms to feed them. Although Gu Mingming's chest was in excruciating pain because her sons were using too much strength to drink milk, it was obvious that the milk these children drank was mixed with blood. But looking at her sons' tiny bodies and eager looks, Gu Mengmeng felt that there was nothing that could not be overcome by clenching her teeth. So, even though she was in excruciating pain, Gu Mengmeng still had a slight smile of relief on her face. Perhaps, this was the legendary saying, women are weak, but mothers are strong. The fourth brother did not manage to snatch the first prize and was clearly unwilling. He did not care about anything and wanted to snuggle into Gu Mingming's arms, while the eldest brother bit his hind leg and dragged him back. He used his two front paws to pounce on the back of the fourth brother, biting his little ears and then his neck. He did not use much strength and was clearly playing with him. Gu Mengmeng poked the leader's head with her finger, gently caressing him from the top of his head to his back, before giving him a light pat on his butt. The boss was so comfortable that he was snoring and twisting his little body was very cute. Gu Mengmeng giggled at her son's teasing. Seeing that the leader had received his mother's reward, the fourth brother also cried out. Gu Mengmeng did not even need to guess to know that he was asking for praise, so she did the same and touched the fourth brother. She then turned to Elvis and said, "Look, most of our elders are sensible." At such a young age, she already knew how to look after her younger brother. "You have the demeanor of an elder brother." Elvis glanced at his eldest son who was acting cute beside Gu Mengmeng, his face full of disdain. As Gu Mingming's head was turned away, she could not see Elvis's expression clearly. She was only immersed in the joy of becoming a mother for the first time. She looked at her eldest son and thought for a moment, before saying, "Our eldest brother is a virtuous brother, let's call him Hada." The word Ku originally means beautiful jade, meaning that our eldest brother will become a good young master who is as gentle as jade in the future. When you open it up, it is Wang Ku. With the word De, it means that he has the virtue of being a king. In the future, he will inherit your mantle and become the next great tribe leader. How about that? Aside from the topic, you're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.